So, what if I told you that you are exactly where you need to be at this moment in time to get the next level of results that you are looking for? How would that feel? Would you stop evaluating? Would you stop judging? Would you stop wondering? Well, that's exactly what we are going to talk about today in this episode of Fix This, Grow Fast. We're going to fix this one thing today so that you can grow with amazing confidence and excitement and go out there and change the world with your incredible business and offers. And dare I say, personality. If you're new around here, welcome. My name is Genevieve Scory. I am the queen of calm, confident selling. I'm a former C suite executive. I've been in all those high pressure sales conversations. I worked for a $350 million health and wellness brand. And I also walk the line of sales enablement, which is sales training. And I've done so for a long time. My goal, honestly, is to help people get further faster in a very calm, confident way, and also to do so in a fashion that aligns with who you are so that you can show up authentically every single day. Now, before I go any further, I do want to let you know a couple of things that you can look forward to in 2026. The first is we're going to change the name of this podcast. And I'm kind of kicking around like sales confidence or calm confidence sales or something along that line. And I would love to know your thoughts. Like, if you have some thoughts about, like, hey, I've been listening and I feel like I know who you are and what you stand for. And this is what I would call it if I were you, or this is how I describe it to my friends. I invite you to leave a comment or find me on social media. But let's decide together what we want to call this podcast. So thank you, first of all, for being here. The second thing I want to let you know that you can look forward to is in the fourth week of every month. I told you guys last year I would start to feature some of my friends who have businesses, who have been through all the things. And I want you to hear from them. I want you to hear from different successful women that I know and love and their journey. And I want you to feel some of the common threads that go through everybody's story. Because if I'm being honest, and that's actually all I know how to be, I'm kind of tired of all of the ridiculous bragging and misinformation that goes on regarding having your own business as an entrepreneur. And like, I'm like, okay, that may be true, but can we stop underselling the work? Can we stop underselling the growth? Because what I see is a bunch of people out there going, oh my gosh, I just cashed my $20,000 check, or I got my 17th speaking agreement, or whatever it happens to be. And every time I read that, I roll my eyes because I'm kind of like, hey, in any other industry, like nobody's bragging like that. Like my professional friends are not out there going like, oh my gosh, I just cashed my $500,000 salary check this month. And I'm super excited about that. So I want you to know that there are very real people out there taking the same journey that you are. And nobody in their right mind is going to tell you it's all upside and no downside. And no downside. So on the fourth week of every month, it's gonna be Scory Story Time. Scory Story Time, where we're gonna talk about sales conversations that I think you're gonna find really fun and interesting. So let's go back to the topic at hand. So here we are in 2026. You are either had a really great last year or you had a not so great last year. That's honestly, those are the only two places you could be. Maybe you're starting new. Okay, so there's three. Well, what I know for sure And there are a lot of things I know for sure because I'm a bossy girl that way. What I know for sure is that so many people misdiagnose their businesses and they judge them incorrectly and they make wrong decisions that cause them to kind of get into what I call the pit of despair, which is a lot like quicksand. It's a lot like quicksand. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're driving your car. You're driving your car, and all of a sudden, the tire is flat. The tire's flat. And instead of just fixing the tire, instead of just going to the back of your car, getting out the jack and getting out the appropriate tools, you start to beat yourself up because how stupid could you be? Like, it has to be your fault that the tire is flat. And why is it every time you drive the car, something goes wrong? That would sound like super crazy, right? And what if you decided, you know what? You said to yourself, self, that's it. Not driving anymore. It's just not worth the disappointment. Now, you and I both know that would be one of the most insane decisions to make. Why? Because looking at it externally, looking at it from outside the situation, we would know that it ain't her fault that the tire is flat. Like, unless you went out there with a nail or a knife and slit your own tires, it's not your fault that the tire is flat. And in most cases, everybody knows at some point in your business. I meant business. I said business, but what I meant was in your driving. At some point, driving your car, you 100% are going to have to deal with a flat tire. Why? Because nobody drives on velvet. Nobody drives on smooth surfaces the entire time. So what do? We prepare for it. You prepare for it. You understand growing up and learning how to drive that you should understand how to change a tire. We prepare for it, the inevitability of it happening to such a degree that we put those tools in the trunk so that not if it happens, but when it happens, we ready. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? But when it comes to our business, it's like this really weird thing that happens where we just beat ourselves up. I know many of you know, and some of you are in it, and I'm thankful for that. Not enough of you are taking advantage of it, if I'm being honest. I have this new coaching program, and it has 3 levels. And when I talk to people about it at various levels, it is really it's so incredibly interesting to listen to the things that different people at different stages tell themselves. I had a great conversation recently with someone who I admire and honestly love. Love, love, love. She's the sweetest person in the whole world, could have easily 4 times the size of her business. And when I asked her how things were going, the answers were all about her. It must be me. It has to be. There's something I am doing wrong. And what I want you to know, friends, and we are friends. What I want you to know is that every business has stages in it. You never outgrow or can outrun or can outtrain yourself from feeling emotionally vulnerable while your business is growing. It happens to everyone. And today I want to talk to those of you who are high performers in particular, because I find that high performers are even harder on themselves because your expectations are just off the chart. Here's what I want you to know. If you've been feeling a lot of pressure or pushiness in your business? Like you just are like you're at a state where you're like, "Oh my gosh, everything just feels weird. Like no matter what I do, I can't get this thing to its next level," right? I want you to understand that that feedback is important to pay attention to, but not to judge. I'm going to say it again. That feeling of things are sinking, I'm caught in the quicksand, I should be further along, I should be doing better by now, I have put all this time in, that is feedback. It's not criticism, it's not a judgment, it's not an indictment. Really successful people understand that this is the exact point where one has to sit back and reassess, not the tactics, y'all, not the tactics. They have to reevaluate their identity. Yeah. So, what I'm getting at is it's not you. And what happens is at a stage in your business where you're high performing. So if you've been in for X amount of years in your business, there are definitely signs of evidence everywhere that you know what you're doing. The signs are there. Stop ignoring them. If you've had success in the past, then there's an adjustment that needs to be made, but it's not tactical. And what begins to happen is we don't know that. And so what do? We dig into more tactics. You think to yourself, I need a new script. I need to rework my offers. I need to establish myself. I need a new brand. I need all these things. I need, and they're all super tactical. But here's what I want you to know. You probably are at a stage in your business where it's not at all about tactics. It's about leadership. You are elevating now to a completely different strata in your business. And if you would lean into this evolution, you will have a breakthrough. You will have a ginormous breakthrough, I promise. But the problem is nobody talks about that. Like nobody talks about that. Nobody says, "Hey, listen, we really need to work on your sales identity." Because what happens is when we start in sales, some of us don't want to be seen. We don't want to be seen, you know. Like, hey, I don't want to be too visible. I don't want to put myself out there. We don't want to be disappointed. So we actually shrink ourselves and our goals so that they're not too big. Because if they're not too big, high performing Patty, right? If they're not too big, then I'm not going to be disappointed. And what begins to happen is we start looking at tactics that suit this smaller vision, this smaller protective thing we've created. And it is self protection. It is 100% self protection. So we focus on sales. We focus just strictly on sales. There's a sale. I'm going to tell you about a sale. Everybody loves a sale. If I tell you about a sale, then I'm doing something for you and I'm not asking something from you. So I'm going to focus on the sale. We don't show up with a huge sense of confidence. We don't put our face out there. We don't have the conversations. We don't own our authority. And I'm telling you, high performing Patty, you have you have the receipts, friend. You have all the evidence. You have earned the right to show up and say, I know a thing or two, and I can help you with your transformation. We need to learn that at some point, the tactics are not going to take us to our next level. You see, because there isn't a sale in the world, there's not a new script in the world that can outperform the need for solid leadership. You see, leadership says, I'm going to own this thing. Like, I'm going to own it. I am going to make a decision that's good for me. I'm going to stop being so stinking agreeable with everybody and everything that I put the things I need to know behind me. You know what you need to do to have a successful business. And can I tell you? Can I tell you? Some of y'all are being led by strugglers. You're being led by strugglers. If you are following a struggler's techniques or tactics, and I'm going to define a struggler as someone who refuses to evolve. That's all a struggler is. A struggler is just someone who refuses to evolve. If you are following a struggler, you are going to struggle alongside them. This is what I'm talking about. Leadership, on the other hand, says, I'm going to take things into my own hands here. I am going to learn. I'm going to learn how to show up in a way that aligns with who I am. You know, if you haven't listened to the last podcast, I cannot encourage you to do that enough, because I really believe that intention is a huge pillar of having a successful business. But the other is alignment to your values and impact. It's about why you're doing the things you want to do. You know, recently I was on social media and there was a woman that posted something, and she said in her post verbatim was, my husband doesn't want me to go back to work. And when I read that, I thought, oh, good for her. Maybe she's just going to be able to stay at home and be like, you know, a housewife, a mom, whatever. Like, he really wants that for them. That's fine. And then she said, he wants me to have a business. He wants me to start a business. And then she started asking, what business should I do? Well, stop the stop the bus. I'm sorry. What? What did you He wants you to start a business? And I did answer. I said, "Do you want to start a business?" Because I'm telling you, if you are not aligned, value wise, that you value having your own business, that you value doing the work, that you value growing into a version of you that can become the queen of your own destiny, right? If you don't value all of that and the work associated with it, it's going to be very hard, Hannah. Going to be very, very hard. So hard. And I said, if you're aligned, if those are your values, I would like to recommend you ask yourself why first, and then answer the question, what? So here you are. You've already asked yourself why. If you haven't, go back and watch that video. But I also really want you to ask yourself, why now? And what if you were being called into a bigger role? What if you were being called into a bigger business? You know, you gotta give into that growth, y'all. You gotta get into that growth, because most of you listening to this podcast, unless you're brand new at your business, and if you're brand new, heed the warning. There will come a time where the tactics will not scale you to your next level. What you really need is to become someone who can hold the space of having a bigger customer base, someone that shows up with confidence, someone who is aligned and feels excited about the work and not traumatized or confused by it. You see, when you feel pushy in your business, regardless of what stage it is always a sign of misalignment. And in this particular case, high performing Hannah, it's your time. It's your turn. You are being called to evolve into something bigger, maybe lead a huge group of women, definitely lead a huge group of customers to have an amazing transformation with your product and your service. Are you stepping into that challenge or are you still running away from it? Because the way you can tell is, what are my goals for this year? Why do I want them? Am I willing to show up and be clearer? Am I willing to drop persuading and really fall in line with giving people space? Because the clearer I am about who I am, what I'm here for, why I'm here, who I serve, and how I serve them, when those things become clear, then you can create all kinds of space and you have all kinds of confidence that the customer can decide for their own dang self. And they will. And I have to tell you, it's so much more fun. And some will, most won't. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. If selling was easy, everybody would be making gazillion dollars at it. The only reason it feels hard is because of misalignment. It's either misalignment of your current values. And in this particular case, in this conversation, we're talking about misalignment in your leadership growth. You are being called to become someone different, not in a bad way, in a profoundly empowering and exciting way. That's why this feels hard right now. That's why you feel challenged, because you're growing. So the question I have for you is, what are you going to do now? Because you're at a fork in the road. And one of those forks, by the way, is just a big, gigantic circle. And it takes you backward, back in the day. That's where that takes you. It's a sign and a road to back in the day. The other leads to a future. It leads to a future that you design, that you get to be a part of, that you get to grow into, that you get to be proud of, and that will create the kind of impact that you are looking for. So that's my story, and I'm totally sticking to it. And I want this message to land for you in a way that you can exhale. That you can exhale and know, like, oh my gosh, this is totally me. And if this really hits home, then I want you to hang out with us. I want you to know where we're hanging out, and it's in the Sales Confidence Studio. If this is something that resonates with you and you're like, I really need to hear more, I invite you to DM me on social media at Genevieve_Scory and just tell me, I heard your podcast. I need to know more. Let's talk about if it's a fit for you. I have recently just opened my premier and executive coaching programs. Those are great places for high performing women where we can dissect your next step with clarity and confidence. And I promise you will have every opportunity to grow into the person that you need to get the results that you really want. My name is Genevieve Scory. This has been Fix This Grow Fast. For now, we're changing the name, remember? I love you all. I do. I hope that your dreams come true, and I'm here to support it and help you make it happen. Talk to me soon. Bye-bye.